Time now to welcome our second speaker, Patrizia Cassaniti. She's an international award-winning work, health and safety advocate with a compelling and also a very confronting life story. She won the Gold Stevie Award as Maverick of the Year, which recognises the achievements of female individuals who have effected positive change on their companies and or industries. Has also been recognised as Top 100 Women in Construction. So be prepared for an emotional and inspiring journey with what you're about to hear with this powerful and potentially life-saving session where the usual "she'll be right, mate," or "it won't happen to me" situation will make you evaluate your daily work practices and make your family the reason why you work safe every single day. Titled "The Reality of What Tragedy Looks Like," would you please make welcome Patrizia Cassaniti.
Morning, everyone. And I'd like to firstly thank WorkSafe Tasmania for allowing me to speak today and share my story because it's obviously something that I'm on a mission to do, to be able to share my story to as many workers as I can, to let people understand that we're all humans. We all have to go to work because we have to, not because we choose to. And unfortunately, in my life, we sent our young son to work and he never came home. There is a slide up at the moment for mental health. What I'm going to be sharing is quite tough. I don't sugarcoat my son's death, and unfortunately it's the reality of what tragedy looks like. So I bring that forth, and that's why there is lifelines out there for you. If it's too much, please do. I'm sure within your own organisations you've got EAPs, contact them, whatever it is. But I can tell you now, I'm sorry, but not sorry. Because unfortunately we need sometimes to be exposed to realities to make us understand and shift. And it's something that I believe has been impactful. I've been doing this for the last 6 years. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I was going to be a public speaker. Probably not even on the list of things to do in my life. I'd actually skip school when I had to do presentations because I just couldn't do it. And it's hard. It's hard to do this. But I can tell you now, my very first talk and my very first time on a stage was 1 month after my son died. Exactly 1 month. And I spoke to 10,000 workers at a march. It was absolutely crazy. And it was from that day that I never stopped. I continued and made sure that I got in front of as many workers as I can to make that shift. Let me introduce you to my wonderful son, Christopher. He was my middle son. He was an amazing kid. Not that he was my kid, but I can tell you now, out of our family, he was the best of us. I've got an older son who is Adriano. He's now 25, and my youngest is now 22, and his name is Michael. And 6 years on, we are still going through a civil case, and it is absolutely grueling. As a family member, for me, my words are always, whatever you do not go to work and die, nor get injured. Because unfortunately there is no help when it comes to the families. You just have to deal with it. And that's the way life goes on. But Christopher wanted to leave Year 10, and he did. He left Year 10 in 2017 so he could go to work. And at the time I was a coffee lady at Macquarie Park. I had my own coffee van. And so I asked Future Form, who were the form workers on site, to see whether they could give Christopher a trial. And they agreed. So the next morning, the day after Christopher finished, I kitted him up into his PPE. He had everything organised, white card, and off we went together at 5:30 in the morning to go to work together. And he was inducted and pretty much was on this trial with Future Form. 2018, January, February, he became an apprentice, first-year apprentice with as a form worker. Absolutely loved his job. He loved it. Loved the camaraderie, loved being outside, the amount of laughs. And I can tell you now, I'm so glad I got to spend the last year and a half of my son's life every single day together, because we'd go to work together and we'd go home together. March 27, 2019, it was Christopher's 18th birthday. It was a Wednesday morning. As per normal, we go to work together. But that morning, I hid a cake inside the van so I could surprise him. I finished everyone's coffees, everyone went off, and I grabbed the cake. I went into his lunchroom, put the candles on, and I said to his boss, "Go get Christopher, it's his 18th birthday." So he did. I can tell you now, when Christopher came down, walked through the lunchroom and saw his mother with this massive cake and candles, he was absolutely mortified. He thought, "Oh my God, are you for real, Mum?" He goes, "You don't bring cakes and cupcakes to my job site." He goes, "I'll never live this down." I can tell you now, I never lived it down because he was just into me. I just went, "But it's your 18th." And I said, "We have to celebrate." I'm so glad I did. I did get that chance to celebrate his birthday in front of his workmates. The car that you see pictured on the screen, that was owned by a steel worker on site. And Christopher had just bought himself a boat and he needed a car now. But he had spent all his money on the boat and he had to take out a loan to buy this car. So he told the guy a couple of months prior to hold on to the car because he had just bought himself a new one, so that he could buy it. But he says, "You have to wait till I turn 18 because I'm taking out a loan." And the guy looked at him and said, "Are you for real?" And he goes, "Are you sure?" And he goes, "Yes, I'm going to take a loan." And he did. That very first morning, had all his paperwork ready and had his loan approved and bought himself that car. He picked it up on the Friday, happy as Larry. Friday, he drove himself for the first time by himself to work, because normally he used to come with me. And that afternoon when he came home, we celebrated his birthday with family and friends. But I can tell you now, the whole night was spent in the car, up and down the street with his mates and his cousins, planning what he was going to do to the car and where the trips he was going to take it to. That was his birthday. The next morning, he gets up and he looks at me, he goes, "Mum," he goes, "I'm so happy." He goes, "Now I've got my car to tow my boat, but there's one more thing I'd like to do." And I thought, "Oh God, what's that?" He goes, "Mum, I want my car to be fully sick." And I looked at him, I said, "Mate," I said, you've just spent all your money on a boat. There's no way you're going to be spending more money." He goes, "In time, we'll get it done." And but he did. And he was just so happy. He Googled his number plate, had everything ready and organised for it to be transformed into his own car. I don't have a picture of the car as it looks like now. But, unfortunately, the next day he went to work. He drove himself to work and got up, and I had just told him that I was going to go. I took the day off because I had so much cleaning to do with his work, with his birthday party. And I said, "You've got your own car now, you can drive yourself." And he did. Unfortunately, when he got up, went to work, went to get ready, and at 12:20 p.m. that afternoon, a scaffold collapsed and crushed him to death. Everything Christopher aspired for, gone. Christopher never even got the chance to have his first beer with his mates at the pub. He was so happy, looking forward to finally turning 18 and becoming an adult, and his life was taken 4 days later. It was absolutely horrific. On that day, everything changed in our lives, the lives of everybody that was there, everyone that witnessed, and the whole community around. It was absolutely one of the worst things ever. And I do have some videos that I will be showing today. So one is a reenactment which has taken me 6 years to actually put together because it's my reality. But this reality is about showing people how easy it is for disaster to hit through complacency. We're all complacent. We have she'll be right moments every single day of our lives, more than once, and we don't even flinch anymore. And so it's that time that I hope when I do my toolbox talks and talk to workers that they actually stop and think the next time they have a she'll be right moment after they've heard me speak. Because unfortunately we don't do that anymore. We've learnt so much to ignore our she'll be right moments and continue and never look at the consequence that comes after. So there is a warning slide up now to let you know that there is going to be this video that's going to be shown. Now this reenactment, as I said, took me 6 years to do. It shows the faults that happen on that day or the decisions and choices made by workers and the builder themselves that actually caused the scaffold to collapse and crush my son to death. He was working with his supervisor. His supervisor survived his injuries, but I can tell you now his injuries are so horrific, he wishes he died with Christopher. Now in the video, as I said, it highlights the 3 major parts of why the scaffold collapsed. I will then show you a second video of the aftermath. In the aftermath was pretty much workers coming out from their lunch, because it was lunchtime, taking out their phones and starting to film. Those videos ended up to me, and I had 60 minutes in Sydney to create an actual, pretty much what the aftermath looked like, which will depict screaming, obviously a lot of the workers very irate at this, at what had happened, because it shouldn't have happened in the first place. So I'll start off the first video and then continue from there. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the short version of what I usually show. As you can see, missing ties, overloaded, and Christopher and Khaled were in an exclusion zone that should never have been there in the first place. That's the scene of after the scaffold has collapsed. It took 3.5 years for me to actually find out what happened to my son, because I wasn't privileged enough to know, even though I'm his mother. As we all know, the investigation takes 2 years before it even hits court, and it was in a courtroom where the judgment was placed that I was told that there was no ties whatsoever. Every single tie of that 9-storey scaffold were removed. It was overloaded by 18.9 tonnes, and Christopher and Khaled were working in an exclusion zone where they had to just, it was actually next to the scaffold, wasn't even on the scaffold, and all they were doing was forming up a planter box. Because that afternoon the concreters were coming to pour. So they were working through their lunch. As the scaffold came down, it made an almighty crash, and they thought a bomb actually hit the site. So all the workers have come rushing out and started filming, and this is the video that you're going to see next. So as they come out, they start climbing on top of the scaffold to try and start cutting, because they actually realised that someone's underneath it. So they're cutting the scaffold and throwing pieces around. Just before the scaffold collapsed, there was 2 bricklayers that had stepped onto the 9th floor of that scaffold and felt the scaffold move away from the building. It was the 26-year-old and a 64-year-old bricklayer. 26-year-old was the one that felt it and grabbed the 64-year-old bricklayer by the chest and said, "Jump," and pushed him onto the balcony ledge, but the 64-year-old didn't quite make it. He actually fell through the gap and was hanging off the 9th floor ledge balcony, while the 26-year-old quickly grabbed him, pulled him up, and the whole scaffold has collapsed from underneath him. As it came down, it actually hit the scaffold that you see in front, the crane that's sitting in front of it, so hard that it listed to one side with the operator inside, and it flicked back. Now, the operator was in there for 6 hours, unable to be contacted, he wouldn't answer his phone, wouldn't answer his radio. But no one could actually get to him because they were too busy underneath trying to get to my son and Khaled. Then, as it came down, it also caught onto the cable that was powering the crane. But thank God it severed at the top and didn't bring everything down with it. Because I can tell you now, every single person you see in the next video run towards that scaffold would have been electrocuted. It was absolute mayhem. Everyone there was already upset about the conditions of the place, you know, the working conditions. Everyone was always on top of each other, screaming at each other. That was horrific. I used to work there as a coffee lady. I used to hear the workers behind me bickering about stuff. But in hindsight, hindsight's a beautiful thing, right? Never in my wildest dreams did it ever cross my mind to think, I better take my son out because he's in danger. Never. But what happened that day, it happened so quickly and it changed so many lives, not just ours, not just my family, my husband, my children, everyone, every single person that was there. So I'm going to go on to the next video so you can I'll show the aftermath of the actual scaffold collapse. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my daily nightmare. Every single night when I put my head down on the pillow, I envisage my son face down with a whole heap of scaffold on top of him. All because of a 5-minute complacent decision that was made that took him for life. Here he is, one moment he's happy, just turned 18, finally an adult. Everything's going for him. He's just bought himself a boat, got his car to tow his boat, and never even gets a chance to use either of them. Nor get on with life, becoming a father, getting married, giving me grandchildren, all these things that we all take for granted, all because of that 5-minute complacent decision. And it's really hard because the thing is, not only do I fear of not remembering what he sounds like, it's the constant thoughts of what was going through his mind as he's pinned underneath this scaffold. When I met with Khaled, I went out and had dinner with him, and he said to me, Trish, the amount of operations and stuff that he's had to put himself back together are phenomenal. Like, he has to take painkillers, take sleeping tablets just to sleep. But he said it's not just the pain and inability to sleep, Trish. The worst part of my life is the mental screams of your son screaming out your name for the 20 minutes that he was alive. And there was nothing I could do. Now, at the time, Khaled was only 49 years old. He had his own 18-year-old son who was working with Christopher doing his apprenticeship at the same time. So for Christopher, he was like his son. It broke his whole life. He'll never be the same. But I can tell you now, the 250 workers that were there that day, that witnessed this horrific event, will never be the same either. And this is why I went out and I educated myself. I did everything possible to try and put change, because I needed to do what I needed to do. I can't bring Christopher back. There's nothing I can do to bring him back. All I can do is to hopefully save a life in honour of him and making sure that his life was never in vain. So I do toolbox talks. I go out to sites. I do conferences, expos, wherever it takes me to get in front of as many workers to bring this message. I speak for much longer. Obviously, it's the videos, even the reenactment is way detailed in letting people understand that it's those simple choices and decisions that we make on a daily basis that can lead to tragedy. Unfortunately, unless you've been through tragedy, we never look at the consequences. It's only when you've been through tragedy that we come to that she'll be right moment and we stop and we think about what's coming next. But the majority of people don't. They come to that she'll be right moment and just pass through it and think, yeah, I've done this 1,000 times before. Why would anything happen? It's about letting people shift and understanding that when we come to those moments, we need to stop. We need to step back and reevaluate. And that is what I do on a full-time basis. As many jobs as I can get onto and as many people that I can speak to shift that mindset. Yes, it is hard to watch, but that's reality. It's not a story that I'm making up. My son never got the chance. And I hope that I can give that chance to the individual, because I can't change the world. I'm not here to change the world. I'm here to change the individual's thinking about unsafe work practices and how do we tackle them. Giving people the courage and workers the courage to speak up any time that they feel that something is unsafe without feeling that they're going to lose their jobs. As I said, I educated myself and went out and got a certificate in WHS so that I could challenge the government. I challenged the government for 5 years to change different things, especially bringing in industrial manslaughter. Every single state was bringing industrial manslaughter. We were the last mainland state that actually brought it in. I'm not too sure whether Tasmania's already done it. Somebody said yes, but it was a fight and a half, a fight that I should never have had to fight so long for. So industrial manslaughter was introduced into New South Wales last year. It is now still in that process of getting through all the to see whether it actually works. I believe, the advocacy behind what I'm doing hopefully brings change. I'm trying to make scaffolding an apprenticeship nationwide. Christopher's Law is about making anti-tampering devices as mandatory for every single scaffold nationwide, and also to bring, I've taken away the insurances as well. So in New South Wales, not sure of all the other states, but in New South Wales you can no longer insure for a WHS penalty, because the penalty that was given on Christopher's case for Janellen, the builder, it was $900,000. But then his insurance company paid for it, so no skin off their nose. They continued, re-phoenixed, continued on with their lives. The scaffolding company again got charged with a $2.2 million fine, and their insurance company paid for that as well. So I went all in and I said no more. No more insurance company, it has to hurt. Because there is no consequences. Without consequences, nobody moves. We need to put those consequences in place, and regulations need to be done. And this is why it's so important. And my advocacy is out there to protect workers and protect businesses also from, making sure businesses are listening to workers when they are facing unsafe work practices and allowing them to speak up and doing something about it. Because I can tell you now, on this side of the fence, after tragedies hit, it's actually worse. You can't fix it. You'll never fix it. Yeah, you have to spend a lot of money to do a lot of changes, but we need to be proactive. We need to do this before something happens. And it is through collaboration with businesses and workers. My message is geared to workers to make them understand that they can't take on unsafe work practices and that they need to speak up. Because I can tell you now, once a disaster hits, it affects everyone. Not just the families, not just the person if they got injured and survived it, but the whole community. And we all can work together to ensure that everybody gets to go home to their families every single day, because that's what we go to work for in the first place. No one ever goes to work fist pumping saying yes. We have to go to work. We don't choose to be to work. We got to make sure that no one chooses to continue with their complacent choices and decisions because they have to, or because they feel like they can't speak up, because they might lose their jobs. And that's what's out there. We need to change that culture. Unless it actually happens, it's too late, no one learns. And I hope to be the person to bring forth that learning, that no one wants to be on this side. Because the human cost of workplace accidents, as I said, is not just the family. It doesn't just affect myself, my husband and my children. I mean, my whole family is so broken. Our lives will never be the same. Never. All the workers that were there, some of them I know very, very well because I was mum on that site. You know, I used to make everyone's coffees and bring their lunches. They used to call me mum. So for them to have witnessed something so horrific, some of them quit their jobs, someone never returned because they couldn't cope. For what? To get a job done? Like seriously, it's a job. It doesn't matter if you own a company, you manage it, you're the CEO, or you're just a worker. It's just a job. That's all it is. And it's up to the individual to say no when they're seeing something that is unsafe. And unfortunately, we don't even realise we're doing it every single day. We don't realise we're having those she'll be right moments because we're so used to ignoring them. We've got to listen to the gut. The gut is our second brain. When something isn't right, it just isn't. Let's stop convincing ourselves that it is. Because when it comes to that, it's when the disaster hits. And that's not just at work. That's at home, it's in the car, it's wherever we are. You all know you can't touch a phone when you're driving, but we still do. It's that split second that can change your life. But it was those split second decisions that were made on that day that killed my son and changed our lives forever. I just hope that everybody, because obviously the ripple effect is so big, that everybody can get together within their workplace, do your consultations, speak to your workers, encourage them all the time, but listen to them. Never ever talk about something, changes that you need to do at work, and then don't follow through. Because when I sometimes come on work sites and do my toolboxes and discuss things, I then get text messages by workers saying, but we do speak up, but they don't listen. And that's when things happen. Make the choices, because the choices don't just come from workers, they come from management as well. It doesn't work from top down. It works from both ways. We need to work together and do that consultation, listen to each other so that we all get to go home to our families every single day. No one ever wants to be part of a tragedy, I can tell you now, because it changes your life forever. That's why I started the Touch by Christopher Foundation in New South Wales. I now help families financially. Every time someone dies in New South Wales, we contact the family and we provide them with 3 months' worth of groceries, pay off any outstanding bills that they may have, and also provide another $5,000 to go towards rent or any mortgage payments that they may have. Unfortunately, the majority of people who die at work are the breadwinner. Imagine one moment your life is everything. No one goes to work thinking they're going to die. But then no one either goes to work thinking they're going to kill someone either. And then when you don't come home, that family has no other help other than the death benefit, which doesn't come for months and months and months. So the Touch by Christopher Foundation is planning to go national. We're just about to go to revamp so that I can help every single family that has endured a loss at work. We need to be able to cover 200 families a year, minimum, because that is how many workers die every single year on an average in Australia. We don't live in a third world country. No one should ever go to work. No Australian should ever go to work and die. The only way to do that is to stop, to think, and to recognise when we're all being complacent. Doesn't matter if you're the worker or the CEO or the manager. Work together for a better workplace all the time. As I said, I go onto sites to share my story. It is more intense than what you just seen. The videos, especially the reenactment, they are much longer. I speak for about at least an hour and 10 minutes. There's other videos that I show within my presentation because it is powerful to have that personal story so that we can shift the mindset to actually understand that choices and decisions we make can change our lives forever. So there's a QR code there. After you go to morning tea, I'll put a little brochure on the chairs, so you can also take that in case you miss the QR code. But if you do want a presentation within your own workplace, you can call or contact us, and we can come out to do that. I do have other speakers as well that have joined my team that share their stories. I've got a lady who's lost her husband and now is trying to raise 2 children with the weight of a mortgage, trying to put them through school. It's absolutely horrific. And an injured person who had an 800-kilo machine fall on top of him and is going through the workers' compensation phase for the last 8 years, has lost his house, has lost his family. These life stories are important. They're so important that people need to realise that life is precious. We are all precious. I know my son's was priceless. I can't, you can't put a price to life. And the only reason why I'm going through the civil court case and taking it through to the end, even though it's tearing us to shreds, it feels like I'm the one that has to explain why my son died. I didn't kill my son. But there's no compensation for families. But I'm taking this through because I'm about to do a movie based on Christopher's life, the aftermath, the hurt and the anguish and the court cases and everything that comes with it, because people are gobsmacked when I let them know that there is no other help. That it's not worth ever to go to work and risk life or injury to get a job done. Because in the end, it's just a job. That's all it is. It's just a job. It's your choice, no one else's. You as the individual, you choose. You decide. So for me, as I said, once everyone's gone, I'll put the brochures down there. If you do want to contact me for anything that, or ask questions about anything, please feel free to contact me at any time. I'm very easily found on LinkedIn as well. And as I said, I'm here. I've dedicated my whole life in making sure that no Australian shall ever go to work and die. So thank you. Does anyone have questions? No? Yes? Yes.
Coming from Queensland, we have the WorkSafe Advocacy Group, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Patricia, is second victims. So those guys, I mean, you could hear them screaming in the video.
It's horrible.
How are they doing? Are you connected with them?
Yes, I do. I speak to quite a few actually, and still connected with some of the workers. I knew every single one there. And it's hard. When they see me, they just break down. And it's not fair. It's just not fair.
And it's construction for life for them. That's their skill set. So another construction side is sometimes a world of pain.
Yep, definitely.
Anyone else like to ask Patricia a question? Well, we've got a couple of minutes before we break for morning tea.
I'll hang around
Yep,
anyway, so if anyone wants to...
Just have one here.
We do?
Yep.
Beautiful.
More so as a parent of an 18-year-old, and I think on behalf of everybody here, thank you for reliving your story every day to keep everybody safe. I'm sure reliving those 20 minutes is just knowing your son was calling for you is just hell on earth, and I'm sure everybody here thanks you for doing what you do to keep everybody here safe and telling your story.
No worries.
Thank you.
No, thank you. I mean, it needs to be done. Not many people get up on stage to relive their loved one's death, especially when it's been at work and totally avoidable. I think it's my anger. My anger drives what I do. As I said, the last 6 years, I've dedicated my whole life in changing legislation, changing, different things, getting together with associations, trying to build a better workplace for everyone, not just workers, but for PCBUs. I try to get out to regional areas a lot where the education isn't as prevalent as it is in the bigger cities. So New South Wales, I do a lot of stints where I go out to a lot of smaller towns and invite business owners to understand the law and understand that there has been changes, because some of them don't even know there's been these changes made, and letting them understand that there's obligations and it's through decisions that they make that can absolutely ruin them. Said we all need to work together, and if I can bring my lived experience and change somebody's mindset, that's what I am to do. That's my mission, and I hope that after workers get to hear my full story, they do think about it and they go home, have a look at their families and understand that they're the reason why they go to work in the first place.
Thank you. That was beautifully said. Patricia, thank you for being here today. That was raw, emotional, personal, but very real. And congratulations on the foundation, because out of all this tragedy, you're still thinking of others. And let's hope that 200 deaths on average a year starts to come down dramatically with change. So thank you. Please would you thank Patrizia Cassaniti one more time. Thank you. So, good morning. Welcome back. Lovely to see so many